Okay, we are recording. This is class 2 of Torah Tuesdays. Today's topic here is authorized worship in Torah, and that's the ongoing theme, the big questions of avodah zarah. We're going to be looking at the theme of creation as boundary formation and the undoing of creation in Daniel 7. And then today was the 10th of Tevet, okay, which is well, I'm not going to tell you what that is yet. And so we're going to be tying that all together. At the very end of today's class, there's going to be a really fundamental, challenging, and probably rather uplifting conclusion about Yeshua and avodah zarah. And it ties into Daniel 7. I think you all will enjoy it. This will be probably, unfortunately or fortunately, one of the longest classes we will ever do. I tried to, well, this should have been 2 classes, so forgive me in advance. I'm going to try to keep it at about 100, well, about 90 minutes. Okay. So if it gets to the point where we need a break, I might pause and stand up, whatever. But I think we're good. Look at the question we have here. How many commanded biblical fasts are there in the Torah? Don't answer yet. Maybe write your answer down somewhere. How many biblical fasts are there commanded in the Torah? Okay. Today was the 10th of Tevet. It is not in the Torah. Is it a biblical fast? Can it be called biblical? As you know, I like to do trick questions. Okay. Write down your answer. Okay, because it'll help when we come back to this in a few minutes. It'll help to bring more light to this topic. We're going to use the 10th of Tevet today in a few different capacities to bring us to avodah zarah, to the Genesis 1 chaos theme, and then back to Daniel, and then ultimately to Daniel 7. Okay, so a few things as a reminder who we are. My wife and I, we are observant Orthodox Jews. We live in Michigan, and we are Messianic friendly. And to clarify, we're not Messianic. Okay, we are very fond of the potential for what the Messianic movement can be. We're very fond of the potential for what the New Testament can do, and it is our goal as Jews to help people who are seeking Torah and seeking to connect to the God of Israel. Okay, so we are looking to not get in your way. We're looking to help you continue that path. Okay, and with that said, what we're not here to do is to train missionaries, right? I don't think anybody here is here to be a missionary necessarily, right? We're here to facilitate meaningful relationships within the Torah world and to help those of you who are pursuing the God of Israel connect more intimately and more closely with the God of Israel, okay? And that will lead to deeper understandings of the New Testament, deeper understandings of who Yeshua is and how he operates within this whole ecosystem. And I can tell you right now, we are misunderstood, okay? Some people are going to think we're anti-missionaries. We're not anti-missionaries. Some people are going to think we're missionaries. We're not missionaries. We get misunderstood from the Jewish world. We get misunderstood from the Christian world. Okay, so your support is appreciated as we go through as we move forward, and I'm excited to continue this. There's, to my knowledge, nobody doing exactly what we're doing right here. Okay, and that is coming as Orthodox Jews, as Torah faithful Orthodox Jews. Okay, and helping the Messianic world make more meaningful connections to the God of Israel. Okay, that is what we're in the business of doing. Okay, there's a lot going on right now in the world. I am seeing such an increase in anti-Semitism. I am seeing things happen now that I never thought we would ever see in my lifetime, and it is concerning. Hang on 1 second, okay? Um, Before I go to the next, I just threw this in here last minute. I saw this just before I got on. It's a meme. It's Paul called, and he wants his context back. When I couldn't read the small print there, and I thought it said content. He wants his books back. It could be, um, but this very much fits within the vision of what I have. I love Paul. The Apostle Paul is one of my favorite Jewish historical characters, and he's been so misunderstood. He was not antinomian. He loved Israel. He had a vision for the redemption of Israel and for the Geulah, and he was misunderstood. And his writings became the crisis moment that birthed the church, and that was not his intention. Okay, and but in God's wisdom, sometimes I wonder if that's exactly what God wanted to happen, because God used that very institution that I can be critical of as a vehicle for great blessing to the world as well too. Let's continue. Okay. How many of you, just if you want to do a show of hands, how many of you have been watching what's been going on with Candace Owens and with Tucker Carlson, Fuentes, and just the increase of there's so much rhetoric right now from Tucker Carlson and from Candace Owens, specifically about these questions of who Israel is, who the Jewish people are, and is it appropriate for Christians to be Zionists or to be in favor of Israel or supporting of the Jewish people? This last week, Candace Owens held this book up, The Talmudic Jew by August Rohling. This book was part of the propaganda machine that fed Nazi Germany, leading to the Holocaust. It's a book that cherry picks pieces from our Talmuds, okay, and it misrepresents how we even use the Talmud, okay. There's a diversity of the ways that Jews use the Talmud, okay, and the Talmud is a discursive text with a plurality of opinions, okay, and it's so much more than just a holy book for us, okay. And what the author does is he cherry picks opinions and ideas and presents them as though they are the official stance. It'd be almost like taking, for example, a law from the books in Georgia, right, from the year 1864, when slavery was still practiced, right, and using that to judge a person living in New York and saying, well, your law books say that it's acceptable to own slaves, right? Well, that wouldn't be a fair statement. And the way that the Talmud's being used in this book is very similar to that. It's using material. We preserve even our opinions that we don't maintain. We preserve those opinions, okay? And it's being used in a way that's not faithful to how the Jewish people understand Talmud, okay? But look at this. She's got 7 million followers on YouTube. She has 8 million followers on Twitter, 6 million followers on Instagram, 6 million on TikTok. And people are just ingesting this material. She has the most downloaded podcast in the entire world. It's like 3 million downloads with every new podcast. And she's putting this material out there as actual, factual, matter-of-fact, dogmatic, and people are ingesting this material and they're repeating it. And I'm seeing so much of this. I have a friend on who's going to speak here in just a second, and he's been learning with me for a few years, and he just lost a friend today because of exactly this. And Caleb, if you don't mind, just giving a couple minute story about what just happened to you. Caleb, you are still on mute, I believe.
Okay, is that better?
There you go. That works.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Peter. Don't get me started on Candace Owens and Carlson and the others. But I've got to say, I was floored this past week when I had lost a longtime friend, someone that I definitely would have considered to be a brother for sure. I lived with this friend for years and years before I ever got married, and we were close. He was the kind of guy that he would give you the shirt off of his back. He was a hard worker. He had good ethics. I probably would have considered him someone that had a pretty decent moral compass, a family man, and so on. Um, as we kind of moved on in our life, we eventually stopped living together as roommates because my wife, we were moving in different directions and so on. But we always stayed connected. We always set apart time to hang out, to keep that relationship. And he was basically pretty much kind of a brother for me, really. It's hold on, let me fix this. Sorry. Yeah. Here in the South, you just don't see, well, especially the area where I'm at, you don't see the anti-Semitism, the rot. You don't see the fruit of that as much because most people, for the most part, around this area are just blue collar workers. They don't have time to get mixed up in a lot of that. At least that's what I've experienced in my life, and that's the way my friend was. That's the way we were. It wasn't something that we paid attention to, conspiracies and so on. Um, so this last week we're playing golf together, and every time we get together we don't miss a beat. It's as if we had never been separated, and we're playing golf, and he just kind of brings it up about the Mishnah Nida 5:4. This is the one that's pulled out of context everywhere, and it's regurgitated over and over to an audience who has no understanding. He clearly had no understanding of the context. He kept calling it their Bible, and it was just super apparent he had no idea what he was talking about. Um, and I would consider him really smart, other than he really doesn't have much historical or biblical knowledge or anything like that. And it's very
So,
clear in these
so where is he
conspiracies.
getting his information from? I mean, he's not like a critical reader. So how is he developing this
Um,
understanding?
so over the past couple of years, he has definitely immersed himself more in the Instagram, TikTok world. And a lot of the videos that he would send me and stuff would be snapshots or screenshots from TikTok or Instagram that someone had shared. A lot of times they were vague and not cited, like you said. They're pulled out of context, and these aren't really coming from educated people on these topics. Um, and he's dabbled in the flat Earth for years, and once he got into that, which all came from TikTok and all of this other stuff,
Sure.
but it's easy to tell that there's no critical thinking involved. He's shown what is on the screen, and he's just regurgitating that. He's
Yeah.
just repeating that over and over again. So when presented with, I had no problem taking apart. I think we spent probably 4 hours talking about it, and I had no problem bringing up. I brought copies of my Mishnah. I brought historical facts. This is a passion of mine, and the things that I've learned from Peter and from other great teachers. It doesn't matter if you cite your sources. It doesn't matter if you bring the history. It doesn't matter what it is that you bring to crush what I would consider easy arguments, because again, these are uneducated shots in the dark that they're jabbing at on this baseless hatred. It doesn't matter because they don't care. They don't care. It's a
Yeah.
cancer. It's a seed that
It's
that
it's
is
a
being implanted.
cancer. It really is. And I'm sorry that you lost your friend. I really appreciate that you took a stance for truth and that you spoke to him and addressed him. And I mean, I think, you and I both know the goal is not to defend the Talmud. Like,
Right,
honestly, the
right,
Talmud is there to critique. The Jewish people critique it, right? And I'm not here to push it as a holy book. I mean, I'm very critical of the Talmud for good reasons. It's part of our tradition, it's part of our discursive tradition. So just to clarify, we're not here to defend the Talmud. So we're here to defend the
right.
Jewish people.
That's absolutely, and
Right.
and just trying to get him to understand that it doesn't matter the logic that I mean this was coming to the extent that he was talking about the Jews controlling the world, how
Yeah.
all of the justices of the Supreme Court were Jews, which was easy to dispel very quickly. And then he's bringing up conspiracies
Yeah, sure.
that from the 1400s of child blood libels, talking
Yeah.
about draining the blood out of kids, and how this I mean, just absurd, outlandish things with no
Yeah.
life in them whatsoever.
Caleb, thank you so much for sharing that. For time's sake, I need to keep moving here, but I really appreciate you
Absolutely.
sharing that. Thank you again for your stance there. I'm sorry about the loss of your friend there. I hope that he turns around. It's terrifying to me just how people are ingesting this content and just taking it in. It's becoming part of their brainwaves and part of their thoughts without any critical thought involved. It's scary. It's terrifying. Caleb, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go back to the screen share. But yes, this is concerning. And this said, if anybody has any questions about content that you're seeing, please feel free to message me or Rena to discuss it. We're opening up a private forum. Everybody who's registered to be in this class has access to it. It's a free forum. It's private. Nobody can see the content on there. Time permitting, I'll show you where it's at. And if you have questions like this, there's no question that's off limits. Questions about anything, about Christology, about what Jews think about things, about Torah commandments, how to observe them, quotes from Jewish literature that don't seem to make sense. And again, I can't say enough. My goal is not to defend the Talmud. Okay, let me just briefly explain what the Talmud is. Okay, just because this is, I'm a Talmudic Jew. Okay, I'm not pushing the Talmud here. Okay, this is what the Talmud is. There was one Torah given at Sinai, the written Torah, the Torah Sheviktav. Okay. When God gave the one Torah at Sinai, he commissioned there to be courts. One court in particular, Deuteronomy 17, verses 8 to 11, the Beit Din Gadol, the high court. Okay. It was commissioned to make decisions on matters of national importance. Okay. That court existed from the time the Torah was given. And the last judges who had authority to sit in that court were persecuted and persecuted and persecuted and died out by the year 350. We no longer have judges that have this level of authority. In fact, technically, the last rabbis ended the year 350. The last actual rabbis that have rabbinic authority. What we have today is a elective authority. It's not intrinsic. But then, before the last of the members of the High Court died, the Mishnah was written down. The six orders of the Mishnah. It was the case law, the Costic case law, and we wrote down the dissenting opinions, the majority opinions, the accepted opinions. We wrote down everything, right? Because that's what we did. And this was written by the year 200. Okay, that was done. And then between the year 280 and 500, there were two Talmuds written. And the Talmud is basically it's the disciples of the disciples of the judges who were codified in the Mishnah. And it's Talmudic debates. A lot of it is folklore, legend, superstition, stuff that nobody in their right mind would ever think twice of accepting, and they shouldn't. But then in the midst of it, there are legal discussions and opinions that help us to contextualize the Mishnah. And so it's not meant to be a book that you look at and say, well, Jews hold this. A person that does this does not know what they're doing, unfortunately. So at some point, okay, I would like to get into some of these legal structures and how they work and what they mean for everybody. But that's not for today, okay? For today, the big vision, okay, is this. It's the two sticks. I firmly hold that God is doing something with the Messianic world. I firmly hold that God is doing something that looks like this. The Yosef, Ephraim, the stick of Ephraim and Joseph being combined with the stick of Judah. I think God's going to do something great and big here, okay? And I'm hoping that this is what's happening. And this is the prophetic vision. This is the prophetic horizon that I have in mind, okay? And I am moving forward with this. Some quick rules. We haven't even started the class yet, so I appreciate your patience. I do use the divine name as YHWH in writing, okay? As we read, if you're called to read or so on, we say Hashem, we say God, we say Lord. At some point, if you have a question about that, we can discuss that, okay? No question is dumb. You're welcome to ask questions. We will have a time not recorded at the end where questions can be asked. It will not be recorded, okay? Pesach is the teacher, Rina is the boss, okay? So if anything happens, we can boot you, okay? We are looking for respect for our differences, okay? And that's important, okay? At no point will I be disparaging your beliefs. At no point will I be insulting, okay? That's just not what we do. What's important to me is that you understand that as you grow and as you grow in your learning, that you are loved, that God loves you, you belong, you are needed, God needs you, and you are wanted. I do not want you to get into a situation where you're feeling anxiety. Someone shared with me today that, don't ever tell me that I can't do X, Y, Z. Okay. And he was concerned. And I'm like, you know what? My goal is to help bring more shalom into your observance. Okay. It's not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you the tools to be able to make those decisions for yourself. Okay. And this is way important to me. Okay. Continuing some more housekeeping things here. Traditore, traditore. Okay. We saw this last week. The translator is a traitor. I want to reemphasize this. When you are reading the Bible in a translation, you're participating in treachery. Okay, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true, completely true. Why? When you move the biblical languages into English or Spanish or whatever language, you are interpreting them. They're being interpreted. They're being added to an interpretive matrix. You see this really thick with the Apostle Paul. His writings have been put through the ringer of the Reformation, and now they don't speak for themselves, they speak for the Reformation, right? I'm a big advocate for biblical language learning, okay? And for those who are in the process of getting there, I highly recommend that whatever Bible you are using, that you use one that has the translation and the original next to it, okay? Why? Because it reminds you that your translation is accountable and is beholden to the original language, okay? And as you're learning to read like that, you are going to recognize the way the Hebrew looks. You're going to recognize how it behaves. You're going to recognize even words, and you'll develop sight words. Rina, we haven't launched a date yet. She's going to be starting a Hebrew class, a beginner level Hebrew class. We need enough students committed to be able to launch this. This will be unique. She'll be starting off with the architecture of the letters, something that you don't see very often done. So looking at how the letters are formed and what the meanings of that is, okay? And then she'll be going through a whole language model, okay, in which beginning in verse 1:1 of Genesis, encountering each word as you go and defining it and learning those words as vocabulary, okay? Her goal is to create familiarity with the text so that you can become a reader of the text in Hebrew. That's really important to me, and I'm very happy that we'll be able to potentially offer this here soon. We need enough attention or enough interest before we can start that. Message me or Rena to be able to launch that, okay? As a reminder, okay, the lullaby effect. We discussed this last week, okay? So many of us are programmed to hear certain things, okay? We're told one thing, but because we expect to hear this, we hear something different. This happens all the time. This happens a lot when Jews and Christians are talking to each other. This happens a lot within that context, right? Where one person says this person expects to hear something else, so they hear what they expect to hear and back and forth. This happens with the biblical text, okay? And as we're learning each other's vocabularies, okay, I ask that you, to the best of your ability, listen, okay? Sometimes it takes 5, 10, 12, 25 times hearing something before you realize that you've been overlaying it with your own expectation, okay? This takes patience with the biblical text. This takes patience with vocabulary. One thing we see a lot of is exactly this, that people will see things and hear things as they are, but not as what's actually being said. We don't hear things as they are. We hear them as we are, right? It's a human nature. This happens with the biblical text. This happens with communication, and especially, like I mentioned, with communication between Jews and the Messianic world, okay? This happens a lot, where the person asks a question, and let's say there's a rabbi in this end, and the rabbi, they're both miscuing. They're saying completely different things, even maybe using the same words, but saying very different things. I put together a quick list of a few of the common words that fall into these categories. And over time, we will be looking at the language meanings of these words. We'll be looking at the lexical meanings and how they behave in the Hebrew text. For today, we're going to look at just the English really quick. A few of the words that I commonly see fall into these categories. The one is salvation and redemption. In the Christian use, typically, salvation is used as a term for personal deliverance from sin and death. A beautiful thing. Next up, it becomes a doctrinal statement, a forensic declaration of innocence and the imputation of alien righteousness, the idea of having righteousness put into your account. Okay, that's the classic Reformation doctrine of justification. Okay, forensic meaning that God declares a person innocent, right? That ends up becoming very dualistic, very much about the soul and the spirit. Now, in contrast, I'm not criticizing it necessarily, but in contrast, in the Jewish use, salvation is cosmic, it's national, it's holistic, it's the whole body. It's not about the soul, not about the spirit, it's about the entire embodiment. Okay. So the question is, which of these are more biblical? We don't have time to discuss this right now. There are pieces from both that have very clear biblical elements. We, as Jews, we also believe in personal salvation, deliverance from sin and death. We also believe that too. We put that, though, into the bigger narrative of the cosmic restoration, okay? This whole idea of the forensic is a whole nother thing by itself. Sin, okay? In the Christian view, sin is typically seen as being an ontology. It's something in a person's nature. It's like it's who they are by nature, by ontology. It's a condition, okay? It's metaphysical. Okay, it's metaphysical. It's something that it's just part of who you are. In Jewish use, sin is something that's measurable. It's concrete. It's concrete breaches of covenant, breaches of trust, breaches of a relationship. You can measure it. It's something you can see. It's not something that comes with you. That it's not this idea of original sin, for example. Okay, so when we speak of sin, we're speaking of very concrete infractions. We're not speaking about a sin condition necessarily. This idea of righteousness, okay? Again, this goes back into the idea of the forensic legal standing before God. People will often say, are you saved? Do you have salvation? Meaning, are you right with God? In the sense of have you received this forensic legal standing with God, this declaration of righteousness. I call it fairy dust, and forgive me if that insults you, but I'll explain why in a second. In the Jewish use, righteousness is embodied. Okay, it's relational, it's communal, it's the right order, it's enacting justice in your life, it's faithfulness. You can see it, you can experience it, right? What's different here is this, where in the Christian view, it's often seen as being like something that you receive that you have or you don't have. Okay, it's like a substance. That's why I call it fairy dust. It's like a sprinkling of something that you receive. Where in Judaism it's lived. Now, again, which is more biblical? Quite honestly, the beautiful thing is, as we keep learning, I hope we get there. The New Testament doesn't support the Christian understanding here. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It teaches in each of these categories, the New Testament is more in line with the Jewish use, and this makes a tremendously big difference. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this next word, the word faith. At some point, we're going to actually delve into the meaning of this word. But just to kind of focus on this, in the Christian use, faith tends to be more about mental assent, interior belief. It's often said to be different than works. Like faith is something you do in your head, and works is what you do with your body, right? Which, by the way, is an artificial dichotomy, because believing things can be really hard work, okay? You can burn a lot of calories to try to think the right things, okay? In Jewish use, faith is about loyalty, allegiance. It's about embodied commitment, okay? It's about something that's actually done and lived, okay? We're moving into our class content. Is it acceptable to celebrate New Year's Day? I'm seeing a lot of discussion about this right now, and I'm going to challenge a number of people's assumptions on this topic. Just out of curiosity, and feel free to type your answer out, and even though I'm moving on, I will look at them as they come. Does anybody here have a really strong opinion on this? As in they think it's wrong to celebrate or to participate in the new year? I'm not going to tell you exactly where I fall just yet, but if anybody's brave enough to say so, please do so, and we will continue. Okay, very good. Very good. Let's continue. Good stuff. Thank you for being brave enough to say something, okay? So I'm going to say that the Romans, let me go back one step. This is the god Janus, okay? The god Janus, is the god that the month of January was named after. I don't know the exact history, but at some points, I think it was Pope Gregory made the new year in the winter. Okay, it used to be in April, which corresponded with the spring new year, but he put it back to January in the middle of winter. And I think it was to correspond with the increasing daylight. I'm not quite sure exactly what the motivation was. I don't think it was ever a new year before it was assigned to that time period. It doesn't, which it doesn't really matter, quite honestly. But that's what I get as to be the history. Okay, but the Romans weren't the first with the pagan New Year. But by pagan, I mean the use of January. Okay, the Hebrews also incorporated the pagan New Year. Okay, our most basic New Year in the Torah is, quote, a pagan New Year. Okay, let's look at that. Throughout the ancient Near East, you'll see this term here, A-N-E, used quite a bit in all of my teaching. Okay, A-N-E stands for ancient Near East. In the ancient Near East, the Phoenicians, the Samaritans, the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians all celebrated a spring New Year. That was the universal standard. They all celebrated a spring New Year. There was a Babylonian festival called a Kitu, okay, which was understood to be the re-enthronement of the gods. It was seen not as just a date, it was actually seen as the recreation of the world. It was celebrated with barley harvests. It was celebrated with the firstlings of the flock, which, by the way, sounds very much like Passover. Okay. And why the spring? Well, spring universally throughout human experience in the Northern Hemisphere is a time of rebirth. Life comes back to the land. The produce starts to become ripe, especially in the Middle East. The floods recede. The land becomes new green. The chaos is pushed back, and life resumes after the winter dormancy. Okay, the new year in the spring made sense. It was a reestablishing of boundaries between chaos and order. As I mentioned already, the Akitu festival was the Babylonian New Year. It was celebrated in the month of Nisan. The Torah calls that month the Chodesh HaAviv, the month of spring of green ears, okay, the month of Aviv. But that was also the month of Nisan, okay, that it lasted about 10 to 12 days, okay. And this Akitu festival was observed throughout Mesopotamia in multiple cities. And it was not just a symbolic celebration. It was what we call a performative cosmology. It was believed that by participating in it, that one was actually bringing back the spring fertility. It was definitely a kind of a fertility observance. And this was timed exactly with the, quote, biblical New Year. Okay, so I want that to sit for a second. The New Year commanded in the Torah was also the time of the New Year for these idolatrous observances and these cults. Okay, we're going to spend some time on a few verses here. Okay, and we're going to see that the Bible has two New Years. It has a spring New Year and a fall New Year. There's been this rather nefarious claim for a long time that the Jews invented the fall New Year in Tishrei. And that claim has often been accompanied by the similar claim that it was copied by the Babylonians and that it's pagan. And those, quote, Talmudic Jews are making stuff up. Okay. I'm curious, have any of you heard that claim before? I'm just curious if any of you heard that claim that the Jews made up the fall New Year, that we took it from the pagans. There are actually 4 New Years. Thank you, Caleb. Of course, you would know that. I'm going to mention that before we were finished. Caleb, I didn't know you were staying. You're welcome to stay. Okay, well, let's look briefly at the biblical record here. Give me a second. And I think Caleb knows all these verses too. Give me a second. Okay, so really quick, Exodus 12. I don't have this as part of my sampling, but we all know this verse here. It's Exodus 12, 12:1. And it reads, it's 12:2, sorry. HaChodesh hazeh lechem, Rosh Chadashim, Rishon hu lechem, Lachad Shehashana. This month shall be to you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. That's a command, right? Is it not a command? And this is what most people will end at, and they will die on that hill, right? And we see then in the catalog of the festivals in Numbers 28, Numbers 29, Leviticus 23, that the number of the months is cataloged back to the spring New Year. For example, we have, this is Leviticus 23:5, the Chodesh HaRishon on the first month, the Arba'a Asar LaChodesh on the 14th day of the month. And as we keep reading here, we get to the seventh month, which is a reference to Yom Teruah, Rosh Hashanah. This is verse 24. Daber al b'nei Yisrael lemor hachodesh hashevi'i, the seventh month. It's counting back to the spring. Okay, so there's no question there. But now watch this. This is Leviticus 24. Just one second. Leviticus 24, verse 16. And I gave the wrong chapter. This must be Leviticus 23. Hang on. Leviticus 23. Sorry, Exodus 23:16. Thank you, dear. Okay. This is the earliest recording of all the pilgrimage festivals. Exodus 23. It says the Feast of Harvest, Hag HaChatzir, the Kore Ma'asecha, the first fruits of your labors, which you have sown in the field. That's referring to Shavuot, by the way. And it says here, Wachag HaAsif, the feast of the ingathering. But Zaith Hashana, at the going out of the year. Ba'aspecha et ma'asecha min hasada, when you have gathered in the labors out of your field. Notice it says here, but Zaith Hashana, at the going out of the year. It says here in the Koran translation, at the end of the year. Really, it's at the going out of the year. Now, if the going out of the year is in the fall, this is referring to the festival of Sukkot, right? Wouldn't that be a challenge? Hold that thought, don't answer. We're going to look at Exodus 34, verse 22. It reads here, Wachag HaShavuot, look at the festival of Pentecost or weeks. Ta'asel lecha b'korei chatzir chitim, you shall bring the first fruit of your wheat. Wachag HaAsif, and the festival of ingathering, again referring to Sukkot. Tekufat Hashana, at the year's turning. Okay, again, a reference that appears to be to an end of the year. Okay, Deuteronomy 31. We have your verse 10. This is a command at the end of every 7 years to do a public reading of the Torah. And it says here, V'yatza Moshe Otham lemor miketz sheva shanim b'moed shanat hashemitah b'hag hasukot. At the end of every 7 years, in the time of the year of release, in the Feast of Booths. It says very clearly here, Michetz Sheva Shanim, at the end of 7 years. When is the end of 7 years? B'moed, at the appointed time. Shanat Hashemita, for the year of the release. B'hag HaSukkot, at the festival of Sukkot. I mean, it's a pretty clear reference there to the year ending in the month of Sukkot, which we know is the 7th month. I forgot to bring this verse in. This is Leviticus 25. And it says here that the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year are supposed to be declared. It says here, this is Leviticus 25, Avarta shofar teruah b'chodesh hashavi'i ba'asar l'chodesh. You shall cause the shofar to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. But Yom HaKippurim ta'avaru shofar b'chol artzechem. On the Day of Atonement shall you sound the shofar throughout the land. So just like in Deuteronomy, we see that the sabbatical year is beginning in the 7th month. We see here in Leviticus 25 that the Jubilee year is beginning in the 7th month. We are seeing here evidence for there being a second new year. Okay, there's a new year specifically. I didn't illustrate this here. You're going to have to listen to me for a second. There's a new year for the fall, a new year for the Shemitah, for the sabbatical years, a new year for the Jubilees. We're going to learn here also a new year for kings. And then there's a new year in the spring for the festivals. Okay. The Bible has 2 new years. In fact, it's necessary to conclude this. Let me show you how. If we look at the chronologies of the book of Kings, the only way to reconcile the chronologies is to allow Israel, the northern kingdom, to use a spring new year, and to allow Judah, the southern kingdom, to use a fall new year. It's really important. The only way that we can make the chronologies reconcile is to say that Israel used regnal, which means New Year's for the kings for chronologies, in the spring, and that Judah, the southern kingdom, used Tishrei years. And this is before the Babylonian exile, well before it. And why would they do this? Well, it's administrative. They both have a reason, and actually we'll get to this in a second. I'm not going to go into great detail. I can publish this somewhere else if you want to see it. But I gave one example in the chronologies. When the kingdom of Judah and Israel were divided, Jeroboam becomes the king of Israel at the same time that Rehoboam becomes the king of Judah. It says here he reigns for 17 years in Jerusalem. Okay, you can look up these verses. I will provide this later if people are requesting for it. It goes on to say in First Kings 15:1 that in the 18th year of King Jeroboam again is the king over Israel, northern kingdom, the son of Abiah began to reign over Judah. Okay, but we know that Rehoboam reigned for 17 years, and if Abiah is after him, why is Abiah reigning in the 18th year of Jeroboam? Okay, you don't have to follow this exactly. Okay, at first glance, this looks to be off by 1 year. It gets worse. Okay. If both kingdoms use the same new year, Rehoboam's 17th year would align with Jeroboam's 17th year. There'd be no question. It'd be both the 17th year. It would just be chronological, consistent the whole way through. And then Abiah should be reigning, taking the throne in the 17th year of Jeroboam, not the 18th year. This is not a scribal mistake. This pattern continues throughout all the chronologies of the kings of Israel and Judah. The only way to reconcile them is to give the following. Okay. As I mentioned, if they both use the Aviv New Year, there would be no discrepancy. Okay. I'm not going to go into all the numbers here, but just bear with me here a second. The way to reconcile this is to allow for different New Years and different ascension rules. By ascension, the kingdom of Judah counted the first year of a king as the ascension year, as year 0. It was not counted. For the kingdom of Israel counted it as the year 1. And the kingdom of Judah began their years in Tishrei. The kingdom of Israel began the year in Nisan or Aviv. This is the way you reconcile it. And this works consistently throughout all the chronologies of the kings of Israel and the kings of Judah. This was a big finding. For a long time, it was thought that there was a irreconcilable discrepancy between the chronologies of Judah and Israel. Edwin Thiessen, I believe the name is, who first proposed this. This is about 70 years ago. He proposed 2 different New Years. And guess what? If you add that plus the Ascension year, which we have evidence for that, it's year Rosh, okay? Once you bring that together, it all works. The whole thing works. It all works, okay? It's beautiful. This is not assumed. This is not just tradition. This does not come from the Talmud. This is forced when you synchronize the years. It's funny, in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 1 and chapter 2, when we were in exile in Babylon, Nehemiah, the prophet, was a eunuch in the court of the king. And when he codified the book of Nehemiah, he actually used Tishrei years there as well, which is ironic because the Persians at the time would have used the spring year. He's trying to basically show his nationalistic pride in doing so, right? We didn't get that from Babylon. In fact, we even imposed it on Babylon in some ways, okay? But now, bear with me. This double calendar axis, okay? The spring axis for the New Year's is the redemption axis. Okay, we have Exodus, we have the festivals, all the pilgrimages, the 3 pilgrimages of the year, the 3 Chagim are measured by this axis. And this is the axis of the avodah and the altar. Okay. On the other hand, we have the kingship axis. This is the time for enthronement, the time for judgment, for assembly, for regnal years. This is actually chronologically when Adam was created in Genesis 2. It goes back to the Tishrei, the fall year. Okay. These are really important themes and they carry out throughout Scripture. This is something, if you want to have a copy of this, I can provide this to you. There are multiple divine kingship psalms in the book of Psalms, obviously, that use motifs that tie to the 7th month. What falls in the 7th month? We have the festival of Rosh Hashanah, which is Yom Teruah, the festival of trumpets, and it ties the ascension of God to the throne with the shofar. In the practice of the kings of Judah, we would have an enthronement liturgy, okay, to celebrate the establishment, the investiture of the king. Psalm 2, by the way, was one of the liturgies, the psalms, the songs that were sung, so Psalm 45. And by the way, this is when Adam was also invested as a sort of like a king in the garden, okay? The tie-ins here are deep, really deep, and this runs in a very deep textual level. Okay, this is why we have 2 years. Okay, in Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. Okay, and we actually see it as well in the New Testament, but I'm not going to go there right now. So, is the celebration of the New Year kosher? Okay, looking at the question of authorized worship, avodah is a question of systems and liturgies and hierarchies and powers, enthronements, affirmations of enthronements, and micro-enthronements. So the question becomes, what avodah is being enacted? Okay. What we've noticed here in the text, and I can provide a detailed copy of this if you want a copy of it later, just let me know. I can put it onto the website. Multiple calendars can coexist. They coexisted in the Bible. Okay. Civil time and sacred time do not need to be forced into compliance. The danger is not having a different New Year. The danger is false enthronement. The Torah never required withdrawal from civic time. It demands avodah, justice, and loyalty. So the Jewish view on the New Year, okay, is that it is permitted insofar that there are not behaviors or meanings that are religious being adopted. Like, for example, if it becomes a high day of holy obligation, for example, then obviously we don't participate in the Mass on that day, right? But there's nothing inherently about the day that is prohibited, okay? I wouldn't call it kosher, okay? But it's not avodah zarah inherently to participate in it. It is at this point, it is a secular observance. I'm going to pause for a second before I move on and look at the comments. Just a minute here. Okay, and I mentioned the 4 New Years. The Jewish people created two more New Years. We created them out of whole cloth because of Torah commandments. The first one is Tu B'Shvat. It's in the winter. It's the New Year of trees. Okay, we had to do that because Torah required it of us. We are required to allow new produce trees to lie fallow for 3 years. The 4th year of the produce to go to the temple, and the 5th year to be eaten by us. In order to be on the same calendar, to be able to all unified obey the commandment, we created that New Year to be obedient to the Torah. Okay, it's a man-made national institution that allowed us to be obedient to the Torah. There's also a new year in Elul that is just before Rosh Hashanah, the 7th month. And that new year specifically is for accountability on tithes, okay, to make sure that we've done our tithes, okay? It's a very minor, we don't even celebrate it, but when the temple is standing, it's a time of accountability to measure our tithes and measure our firstborns, okay? Is there anything in the comments I need to respond to or anything?
With Jen, she said, where is it in the Torah with the new years of trees? And I told her it's required in the sense of the law in regard to not harvesting the fruit for a certain period of time, but maybe you can explain that a little bit more.
Yep, Leviticus 19. Leviticus 19 at the very end. Okay, it says, when you come to the land, and you shall have planted all manner of trees for food, and you shall reckon their trees as arlatho, as uncircumcised. 3 years shall be as uncircumcised unto you, it shall not be eaten. But in the 4th year, all its fruit shall be holy for praising the Lord. In the 5th year shall you eat of it, its fruit, that it may yield to you its increase. I'm Lord your God. So the question became, okay, if we're living together as a national existence, right? And I don't know if you have practiced this on the same schedule that I'm practicing it, right? I don't know if I'm going to the market, and I don't know if I'm buying fruit that's prohibited because it didn't lie rest for 3 years. It's prohibited, right? It's prohibited. It's a sword. It's not permitted. To be able to maintain the national cohesion of obedience to the Torah, we created a line in the sand that's to B'Shvat. That's the new year in Shabbat, okay, the month of Shabbat, which is the next month. Right now we're in Tevet. And that was done specifically to allow us to be able to be unified in the observance of the Torah commandment. It's a man-made practice to allow us to observe the biblical commandment and do so as a nation. Okay, I mean, we could have not done that, and then nobody would know who was on first base, and you wouldn't be able to buy your neighbor's produce because you don't know what calendar he was practicing. It sounds almost like today in some of the different calendar disputes, right? This allows for national cohesion in our obedience. So, excellent question, Jen. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, let's get on to what's next here. Okay, how did you answer this question? If anybody would want to volunteer, how many commanded biblical fasts are there in the Torah? Since the 10th of Tevet is not in the Torah, can it be called biblical? Okay. If anybody has a brave desire to raise a hand to say anything, please feel free to offer. This is inherently a trick question, and I will not laugh at your answer regardless of what it is. Okay, I promise. 0. Okay, thank you for being brave. Okay, how many commanded biblical fasts are in the Torah? The answer was 0. Since the 10th of Tevet is not in the Torah, can it be called biblical?
Jen agrees with Dave.
Okay, let's look at this. There's a few layers here of things to look at. Okay,
and what is fasting?
What is fasting? Okay, this is Leviticus 16:29. It's also read in Leviticus 23. It says, it shall be a statute for you that in the 7th month, ba'asar lachodesh, on the 10th day, ta'anu eth nafshotechem, you shall afflict your appetites. Well, kol malaka lo ta'asu, all crafts you shall not do. Ha'ezrach wa hager hagar batochen, the native born and the immigrant that sojourns with you. This is the only biblically commanded fast. There has been historically a debate about whether or not this is a full fast. There's been an historical debate about that. The Karaites, the Karaim, a minority of the Karaites, which were the Jews that did not accept the authority of the mainstream rabbinic establishment. There were some curates that argued that this was not a fast. Okay, they argued that it was something different or it was not a full fast. Okay, you'll notice how I read the word here. It says ta'anu eth nafshotechem. You shall afflict your appetite. Okay, I think I'm going to pull this word up. I don't know lexically if I'll be able to show this here at the moment. Give me a second. Leviticus 16:29. Okay, this is the word nafshotechem. It comes from the word nefesh. Okay, it means soul, life. It's often translated as soul, which is actually a very misleading translation. Okay, but one of the main meanings of nefesh here is appetite. Okay, you can see it here, appetite. Okay, it is used in this exact construct, ta'anu eth nafshotechem, to afflict one's appetite, and it refers to fasting. I'm trying to find the reference here. I did not have this. A second. This might be a topic that we can go biblically into a deeper exploration of this, but it is used one time in the book of Psalms as a reference to fasting, specifically as this phrase ta'anu, this word anu, which means to afflict, and nafshotechem. Sorry, 1 second. Now, as you probably know, that the Jewish view is that we do a full fast, water and food. Okay. Now, elsewhere, Leviticus 23, it says that the punishment for not afflicting yourself on this day, I'll just go there. Hang on a second. The punishment is Leviticus 23, is the punishment of kareth, which is to be cut off. Being cut off is a spiritual punishment. It's not being removed from the community. It is specifically a punishment of being cut off before God. Hang on a second. I thought it applied the punishment of kareth to the affliction. Okay, I am not prepared to speak on that because I can't find it. I don't want to spend a lot of time looking for it. 1 second. The Jewish holding is that because of the severity of the commandment, we don't take it lightly. Okay, so we don't want to, because of our Yirath Hashem, our fear of God. When it comes to something like this, we go with a few things. One, we go conservative. Okay, we don't take more lenient approaches when it comes to biblical law. Rabbinic law, we take lots of leniencies. Biblical law, we don't. And second, we have a national tradition, okay, that's almost completely undisputed. We have many, many Second Temple witnesses, from Philo to Josephus to the Qumran scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls, that there was no question within the Jewish witness of faithful observance of this commandment that it was a full fast. Okay. Within that tradition of fidelity, and because of our fear of God, and because of the linguistic meaning here, to afflict the appetite, we hold that this is a full fast. Okay, I could go more into that, but now, okay, where did these other fasts come in? Today was the 10th of Tevet. We fasted this morning from about 6:40 my time until about 5:45 my time. Okay, I'm going to show you where these fasts come in. Before we go there, in the context of where we're going to find these fasts, I'm going to show you a verse that you all are very familiar with. And many peoples and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and shall pray before the Lord. Okay, here's the verse that everyone knows here. Ko amar Adonai Zevaoth bayamim hahem asher yachazichu asara anashim mechol lashonoth hagoyim. Thus says the Lord of hosts. In those days it shall come to pass that 10 men of all the languages of the nation shall take hold and shall seize v'hazichu bichnaf ish Yehudi lemor nelcha imachem ki shamanu Elohim imachem. Shall take a hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, it says an ish Yehudi, a Jewish man, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. This is a very profound statement. This is not a, sorry, I'm not to offend anybody. This is not talking about becoming Noachites. This is talking about people who are literally taking a hold of the zitzit of a Jew, and they're saying, Nelcha imachem, we will walk with you. This word Nelcha is the same word as halach, like the word halacha. We will walk with you. Why? Because we have heard Elohim imachem, that God is with you. Now, this is verses 22 and 23. Now, look at the prior verses, okay? Verses 18, 19. Wayahi devar Adonai Zevayoth, Eli lamor, Kol amar Adonai Zevayoth, Zom ha-revi'i, Wazom ha-chamishi, Wazom ha-shavi'i, Wazom ha-asiri, Yechle levei Yehuda l'sason l'simcha. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th month. They shall become times of joy and gladness, moadim tovim, and good festivals, the word moed, Waha'ameth, Wahashalom, Ahavu, to the house of Judah. Therefore, love truth and peace. Okay, so we see here a reference to, in the prophet, the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th month. This is referring to the 17th of Tammuz. This is referring to the 9th of Av. This is referring to the 3rd day of Tishrei, the fast of Gedaliah, the last sitting king of the house of David in Judah, and the fast of the 10th month, which was today, the 10th of the 10th month. So the question I have here for you, since these fasts are in the Bible, are they now biblical fasts? They're not commanded in the Torah, but since they are in the Bible, are they now biblical fasts? And if they are biblical fasts, are these adding to Torah? Okay, so on this particular question, I'm going to pause a second. If anybody wants to give their quick opinion, I'm definitely open to it. I'm going to check the chat. Okay, Katie, very good. Biblical, yes, they are in the Bible. Okay, very good. Okay, and so Jen said that afflict may not mean from food necessarily per a rabbi, she heard. The biblical, someone said the biblical but not commanded. David, I appreciate that question. We can definitely revisit the question of the fasting on Yom Kippur. Someone loves this section of Zechariah. I do too. Okay. I am literally going to leave you on a cliffhanger with this, okay? These are not biblically commanded fasts, but they are biblical fasts. We'll come back to it. We're going to segue now to the meaning of the 10th month, okay? So I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry to leave you on that point. I hope I've challenged some thinking, okay? I hope I've challenged some thinking. They are man-made fasts. I will emphasize that. They are man-made fasts, okay? But they're in the Bible, okay? Let that sit for a bit, okay? So Asara B'Tevet, the 10th of Tevet, it commemorates the moment when Nebuchadnezzar's siege of Jerusalem begins. This is recorded in these passages here. Importantly, it does not mark the destruction of Jerusalem itself. It marks when Nebuchadnezzar lays siege to the walls of Jerusalem. I see a hand raised. Why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to speak.
Thank you. I found that reference to the cutting off with not participating in the affliction.
Okay.
It's found in Leviticus 23:29.
I was right there.
Okay. Yeah. Whatsoever soul it shall be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, it shall be cut off among his people.
Thank you, Laura Lee. I really appreciate that. I was right there. I didn't see it. It said, yes, ki kol hanefesh asher lo ta'anu, for whatever appetite does not afflict itself, but etzem hayom, on that same day, hazeh, when nechratha me'amecha, you should be cut off from his people. And just to clarify what that means, being cut off, there are 19 offenses in the Torah that result in this result of being cut off. It does not mean being removed from the camp. It does not mean being stoned. Okay, these are offenses that are between the individual and God. If a person is doing this in public, there's a public penalty for it. Okay, if a person, for example, breaks the Sabbath publicly, there's a public penalty for it, right? The Torah is clear on that. But if a person breaks the Sabbath privately, the punishment is kareth. It's being cut off. Okay, and that's not an irreparable penalty. Okay, the penalty of kareth, being cut off, only continues insofar that the person maintains their wanton rebellion in that offense. When the person repents, there's restoration. Okay, if a person continues in an offense that holds the penalty of kareth, being cut off, insofar that they continue in their wanton high-handedness, their zaydan, they call it zaydan, their willfulness, to that point, they remain in the status of kareth. So it's not a permanent thing. So don't feel that. Repent and quit doing the sin. Exactly. And how does one get grafted back in? Yeah. So the person is still part of the community of Israel. The kareth refers to a few things. One, it refers to life in the age to come. It can refer to a premature death if God does so. Okay, and the person that lives in that offense, their children are not going to be continuing if they continue in that spiritual way of life, they will not be raising their kids in the Torah, and their lineage will be cut off from the community of Israel. Okay, so it's not the individual who's coming in and out of the community, so to speak. It's a generational piece. Okay, and it's also a spiritual piece referring to life in the ages to come. That's a beautiful study in and of itself. Okay, so we're going back here to the 10th of Tevet. Okay, this is Ezekiel 24, verses 1 to 2. It says here, in the 9th year, b'chodesh ha'asiri ba'asar l'chodesh, on the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Ben Adam, son of man, lecha eth shem hayom eth etzem hayom hazeh samach malech Bavel. Write the name of this day. The same day, the king of Babel has invested Jerusalem on this very day. This word invested is the word samach, means to lean upon. Like he's like built seizure, like a scaffolding or something against the walls. He has seized the walls of Jerusalem. And I mentioned already, this is also referred to in the book of Jeremiah, 52:4. If you look at 2 Kings 25:1, it's a different date, by the way. An interesting reconciliation there in itself. But either way, this is a biblical history. We can establish that this happened in, I have the wrong year, forgive me. This was in January of 588, not 587. So January 15th. If we use a new moon reckoning based on the crescent, we can pretty confidently date this to January 15 of the year 588 before the Common Era. And then the temple was destroyed in July, August. I didn't do the exact calculation, but in July, August of 587, just a few months later, the temple was destroyed. So very, very significant events. I mean, in this context here, we see the intrusion, okay, of a foreign king into the temple and the destruction of the temple. The people had the false notion, almost like an eternal security. They thought that if we have the temple, that nothing will ever happen to us. But what did we do? The prophets say that we invited the avodah zarah into God's house, and we engaged in injustice toward the widows, toward the foreigners, and we didn't practice the Shemitah, the sabbatical year. Those are the three things that the prophet said that we did: avodah zarah, which can be translated as idolatry, injustice to the widows, orphans, and to foreigners, and non-observance of the Shemitah year. We disordered our avodah. We brought chaos into the house, and God abandoned it. Okay, that's what happened. God abandoned it and allowed it to be destroyed. Some quick items here on the chronologies. Okay, I have the wrong year for this, but the 10th of Tevet was January 15th, 588. Okay, moving From there, we have the year 587, which is the year that the temple was destroyed. Darius began his edicts for the rebuilding of the temple about the year 516 before the Common Era. This history will give some context to what follows. What's been called the best documented date in all of ancient history was the decree in the year 444 by Artaxerxes when Nehemiah was told to go back and to build the walls. Okay. There is discussion about other decrees here. I'm not debating that right now, but this date is so well established because we have an actual artifact referring to it, and it refers to astronomical events, and we can time it. It's one of the best confirmed dates in all of ancient biblical history. And what's fascinating with that is, well, the standard rabbinic chronology is off on this. The standard Siddur Olam chronology is off by about 180 years, which by itself is its own discussion. But the secular dates correspond beautifully with the biblical dates, and these are what we have here. The year 398 is when I hold Ezra came and did his reforms, Ezra 7 and following. Some chronology things here that we can discuss at some point, but not right now. So the fast of the 10th month, okay. Really quick, how's everyone doing for time? Does anybody need a break? No offense if you do. I'm going to continue. The fast of the 10th month. Okay, Jerusalem, as we've explained, was the center of the avodah Hashem, the service of God. At Sinai, God gave a liturgy, an avodah, and that avodah was the place and the service that aligned heaven and earth. At the place of the avodah Hashem, that's where heaven and earth were aligned. It was like a portal, so to speak. So when the siege happened on the 10th of Tevet, it cut off the liturgical rhythms of the temple. The avodah Hashem was immediately jeopardized. It continued, but it was jeopardized. The chaos begins to creep back in. Okay. And the fast that was done today, it mourns the moment when the Malkuth Hashem, the kingdom of God, begins to be displaced. Okay. We saw, and we have to do some quick review here before we go to Daniel. I did not read the comments. Hang on a second. The baby's in bed. Okay. Okay. Any questions I'm missing, dear?
So I can't remember if you answered for sure if one fast is one fast required in the Torah, Yom Kippur, or did you leave that out with part?
Okay, so the definitive answer is that there's one fast required in the Torah. And in fairness to those who are inquisitive, I am allowing for the fact that the text does not close that door entirely. There are other reasons why I close the door and say, yes, it's definitely a full fast. But based on just the raw text, a person could argue that there's some details missing. Okay. But we hold that there is one full fast commanded in the Torah. So I hope that's okay. Okay, so we saw with the previous classes here how the Genesis creation model, as we go from Genesis 1:1, we begin with three areas of chaos: the tohu vavohu, okay, the waste and wild, formless and void; the choshek, that's the darkness; and the tehom, okay, the deep, which we understood here is a reference and allusion to the Tiamat, to the dragon. Okay. The creation is not just about manufacturing new matter. Okay. In fact, we don't even necessarily see new matter coming into existence in the creation. What we do see is the assignment of roles and the placement of boundaries. and the containment of chaos and the imposition of a functioning ordering over the creation. We begin with chaos and disorder, and we end with order, okay? We saw here how the sevening of the creation story is very important. Beginning with the tohu vavohu, we have the idea of the tiamat, the dragon, the chaos, okay? We see God putting constraints over the chaos, setting boundaries, assigning functions, okay? And then as we get to the end, we have on the sixth day, God instills the image of God. The only day he says tov ma'od, very good. Why is it very good? Because he has installed humanity to be his representative, to continue the role of subduing the creation and keeping the boundaries on the chaos. And then the seventh day, which I've been saying for some time here, if you've watched my Way of Sabbath videos, the seventh day does not have the bounding of time. It is not defined by evening and morning. It is not just a memorial to the past. It is a calling to the future. The word Shabbat, the verb Shabbat means to cease. That root shuv means to sit, yeshav, like to sit on a throne. It also is yeshuv, to dwell, to occupy, and shuv, to return. It's a proclamation of the purpose of creation, which is for God to dwell as king, enthroned within the creation, with communion and harmony with humanity. That's the goal of the creation. Genesis 1 is telling us that. It's telling us that the world makes sense through the eyes of the Sabbath. Okay, really important. With humanity appointed as the image of God, and the Sabbath being the calling to which all humanity is called to. We spoke about here this whole idea of the olam hatohu, the age of tohu. This word tohu comes from tohu vavohu, the waste and wild, formless and void. In Jewish eschatology, this is how we see it. We see that the olam tohu, the age of tohu, is the current age that we're in, the age of subduing the chaos, of completing and fulfilling the mission of being the image of God. And we're moving toward olam hatikun. God is not going to abandon this world. He's going to accomplish the mission through the appointee, and the appointee is humanity, to be the image of God. This is the olam hatikun, the world of rectification, and his presence is here in the world. The temple is the representation of his presence in the world. It is not only the representation in the Jewish field, it's actually the instantiation of his presence in the world. As we look at the crescendo of the creation, on the sixth day, as mentioned, God appoints humanity as the image of God. The seventh day, again, is the Shabbat. Okay, the word Shabbat is often translated here as rest. In Genesis 2, verses 1 to 3, it does not mean rest. People have created entire paradigms of what it means to keep the Sabbath based on the mistranslation of the word as rest. It can be translated that way, but that's like a tertiary or a fourth level translation. Shabbat means to cease, okay? God ceased from his malacha, from his agency on the seventh day. And it means to occupy, that God's seeking to dwell within the creation on the seventh day, okay? Really all days, but the Sabbath is pointing to that. We saw this idea of the avodah, okay? The avodah is the liturgy of the service. The creation is given to us in Genesis 1, 1 to 2, 3 as a liturgy. The creation, by its very nature, is liturgical. It is a liturgy of 6 days plus the ceremony of the Sabbath, the ritual of the Sabbath. It is a liturgical ordering of the creation. And the idea of the avodah, of the liturgy, gives to us a vision of reality, of God dwelling in the creation, a hierarchy of power, who's in control, and a goal, a telos for the world. Okay, we have the idea of the chaos versus the order, and the Sabbath is the reminder of what we're called to. Some review items here: avodah zarah. The word avodah again means liturgy, worship, service. Okay, the word zarah means foreign, unauthorized, strange. You can combine the words different ways. Avodah zarah can mean strange liturgy, unauthorized worship, foreign service, outside worship. Okay, you can different ways you can combine this. Okay, this is a word I'm using all the time, avodah zarah. So get familiar with it. I probably will be defining it numerous times throughout, not tonight, but in the future. What is the effect of avodah zarah? I already hinted at this. When when the house of Judah was unfaithful in Jerusalem, and we brought avodah zarah into the temple, okay, what happens when we align with avodah zarah? It's an alignment with a rival order. It's an alignment with a rival order that is different than the purpose of God. Okay, when avodah zarah is reintroduced, distinctions collapse, boundaries are blurred, sacred space is destabilized, and the door is open for chaos. So in that sense, avodah zarah is a creation level crisis. It's a creation level problem. Okay, it's built right into the avodah of Genesis 1. Avodah zarah is a creation level problem. Really important. Avodah zarah, okay, this is the idea of the competing order systems. The avodah Hashem, the service of God, which is instantiated in the temple, is the reception of order, the living within that order, the reception of boundaries, living within those boundaries, the most obvious one being the seventh day. And within this context, purpose is revealed over time. There's great depth to that. We're not going to go there right now. Avodah zarah, in contrast, though, order is seized, not received. Boundaries are crossed, and power is accessed prematurely. An example of that, we are to learn by revelation and by formation. If a person, for example, consults the dead, the Torah says, Al deresh al hameithim, do not seek to the dead, do not consult the dead. That'd be an example of an avodah zarah that's accessing power prematurely, that's seeking knowledge prematurely, right? In contrast to that, the Torah says to rise before the elder, Leviticus 19. We are to honor the elder. The elder is how we receive the Torah, okay? Not the only channel, but one of the channels that God has established. It is purpose revealed over time versus power and purpose and knowledge seized prematurely. Really important fundamentals here, okay? So as mentioned, humanity is appointed as the image of God on the sixth day. We're going to look at an important psalm. We're getting to Daniel 9, and we're at... I'm really concerned that I need to hear a real loud, clear noise from everybody that we're okay to keep going. Are we okay to keep going? Because I'm fine.
I'm good.
Okay, we are going to continue. It is my objective to keep these classes to about 45 to 60 minutes. This is not going to be the case tonight. Okay, so I apologize. This is recorded. Okay. Psalm 8. Many of you are familiar with the psalm, I'm quite sure. Psalm 8 is a very significant psalm. Adonai Adonenu ma'adir shimcha b'chol ha'aretz. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the heavens. Okay, let's look at the structure of the psalm and how it works and so on. I use this a lot. These are called chiasms. A chiasm is a literary structure that's common in Hebrew poetry. It also occurs in the New Testament, especially in the book of Revelation. But a chiasm is when there is a crescendo. It's like walking up a stair, okay? Hitting the peak and then walking back down. It's like going from the base, okay, to the summit of the mountain, okay? And when you identify a chiasm, it's like this: A, B, C, D, the middle, and then back down, D, C, B, A, okay? Every psalm has multiple chiastic alignments, sometimes multiple. And what's beautiful with a chiasm is that you can use the parallel A, B, B, C, C to even interpret the text. The text is there to interpret the meaning of it. It's really quite beautiful. At the center of the chiasm in Psalm 8 is humanity crowned as the image of God. It actually explains to us what's happening in Genesis 1. This is the chiasm outlined. It's not directly lined up exactly, but Psalm 8, A, B, C, D, X in the middle, D, C, B, A. And I put a crown there because the message here is actually the crown. It says, this is the D, this is the crown, this is the D. It says, Ma enosh ki tiskarenu uven adam ki tifkadenu. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him? What chasrehu ma'at me'elohim. Yet thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. Okay, the Translation to angels. The Hebrew here is Elohim, the gods. The most literal translation here is also the most disjarring translation. It's very uncomfortable to people's ears. Okay, you could read this here. It's the word for God, plural. Gods, plural. You made him a little lower than the gods, and you did crown him with glory and honor. It says here his purpose here is Tam Shilehu b'ma'asayadecha. You make him have dominion over the works of your hands. Kol shatat tachat ragla. You have put all things under his feet. This is actually a commentary on the sixth day of creation, Genesis 1:26 and following, which we're going to go there in just a moment. This is interpreting what the sixth day is. And why it's significant, it refers to Elohim here, is it's referring specifically to a divine council. And I'm not sure how deep we're going to go into that. What we see here is that humanity is positioned between heaven and earth as a delegate ruler, as the image of God. I want to emphasize this. The image of God doesn't fall in the category of what I called earlier, like a fairy dust. It's not something about our nature necessarily. It's about our role. It's about our vocation. It's about our mission in the world. It's to be the authorized deputies for the God of heaven, to rule over the creation, to be a delegated ruler to represent God in the creation, to continue his work in the creation. And so we go to Genesis 1. This will all become very clear as we get into Daniel 7. It says here, well, Yomer Elohim na'aseh Adam b'tzelmenu. And God said, let us make mankind in our image, after our likeness. He goes on to say, verse 27, actually, I should keep reading. It says, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth. This is Psalm 8. We just read this, okay? And God created mankind in his own image, in the image of God. He created him, male and female, he created them. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about potential, like abstract metaphysical meanings here to the plural. And honestly, I can't disprove those. I can't, nor do I care to. The most likely literary anchoring for what this means here is that God is speaking to a divine council, which is why in Psalm 8, it says, he made mankind a little lower than the gods. Okay. In the ancient world, it was the role of the gods, plural, to hold back the chaos, to put boundaries and constraints in the chaos. It was the role of the gods to do that. The revolutionary idea in the Hebrew Bible was that humanity has been given that role. All humanity, male, female, slave, everybody's been given the role of the image of God to hold back the chaos. What the ancients thought the gods did, the God of the Bible appointed humanity to do. This is huge. It's huge. This is like one of the foundations of Western society is the idea that all of humanity is the image of God. We're all appointed to represent him. Next verse, it says that God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion or do over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Again, the idea of the divine appointment for authority over the creation. Okay. The sixth day, the image of God, is the delegated governance of humanity over the creation. Okay. It's God appointing humanity over the creation to be his representative, to have this mission, this vocation. Okay. We're building up to Daniel 7. I appreciate your patience here. Re-emphasizing here the idea of the tohu with the vohu. Okay, the chaos and the confusion and the chaos. And this idea of the tehom, the dragon. We're gonna look at a few verses here really quick that are important for context before we go to Daniel 7. Okay. One pattern I want to point out here is that when God created, it says choshek al panei tehom, that darkness was over the face of the earth, so the face of the deep, the tehom. God moved the chaos into order. When God judges, what happens? God takes the order and moves it into chaos. Okay, so Genesis 7:11, when the flood of Noah is beginning, it says al menoth tehom rabbah, and the fountains of the great tehom, the tehom. It's the same word tehom used over here. I didn't put it into the English, but it's the word tehom, the great deep. So just like the tehom was constrained in the beginning, the tehom breaks forth for the flood. Okay. And this is why we read in Jeremiah 4:23. We saw this passage last week. It says, "Reisi et haaretz v'hinei tohu vavohu, v'al hashemayim ein arum." This is a passage of judgment. The temple in the prophet's mind, in the prophet's vision, has been destroyed. And what does he say? I beheld the land, and lo, it was waste and void, and the heavens, and they had no light. It's using the exact term from Genesis 1. It's deliberately taking that, and it's describing the destruction of the temple as a return to Tohu Vavohu. It's literally decreation through covenant collapse. Just like the flood was a decreation through judgment, so likewise the destruction of the temple was a decreation through a removal of order, through a judgment. Look at these patterns, really important. And now let's look at this dragon imagery, really also very significant. Psalm 74 and Isaiah 51. Psalm 74. If you see here, verse 12, my God, for God is my king of old, working salvation or deliverance in the midst of the earth. Ata parata ba'azcha yam, you did divide the sea by your strength. Shabarta rashe taninim al hamayim, you did break the heads of the sea monsters in the waters. This word taninim is plural. Most likely it's actually a plural of intensification, meaning the big dragon versus a singular. It's the heads of the big dragon, heads plural, the big dragon in the waters. Ata radzatzta rashe leviathan, you did crush the heads of the Leviathan. Titanemeachel da'am metzim, and gave him for food for the desert people. This psalm is using imagery from the creation to describe his situation. Psalm 74 is written after the temple is destroyed. And what he's doing here is he is reaching back to the creation to make sense of the present collapse. You split the sea by your strength. You crushed the heads of the great dragon. You broke the heads of the Leviathan. Okay, against the word heads both times in the plural. The dragon imagery is invoked because the sanctuary is gone, and God is remembered as the sea splitter, the dragon crusher, and the boundary setter. You fix the boundaries of the earth. Okay, Psalm 51:9. And one thing you'll notice here in these passages is that it blurs. You can't tell if it's talking about the creation. You can't tell if it's talking about the parting of the Red Sea and the Exodus. And you can't tell if it's talking about the future. Why? Because they're all the same in these passages. Okay, so much to say on that. Okay, so, Isaiah 51:9. Uri livshe oz rua Adonai uri kemei kedem the roth olamim. Awake, awake, put on strength, the arm of the Lord. Awake as in the ancient days. Art thou not he that has cut Rahav in pieces and wounded the crocodile? Okay, it says that aren't you not he that has cut Rahav? Rahav is referring to Egypt. Okay, Mocheles tanim, and has wounded the word crocodile is the same word we saw in Psalm 74, the dragon. Okay, you cut Rahav in pieces and you wounded the dragon. Okay, in the ancient world, the chaos was seen as this dragon that was overcome by the conquering deity. Okay, Genesis 1 takes away some of that mythology on purpose, but it's still behind there. It's still in the minds of the ancient readers, as we see here. Verse 10. Art thou not it, or he that dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep? The Yam, me, Tehom, Rabbah, the word Tehom is used here as well, that made the depths of the sea a way for the ransom to pass over. Again, it's talking about a creation imagery, an Exodus imagery, and it talks from there, the redeemed of the Lord shall return, talking about the future. It's combining all of these things into one. Okay, so notice this. Looking at the second passage, Rahab refers to the empire, to Egypt. The Exodus is framed in this context as a creation level victory. And the passage directly links the defeat of the dragon with the crossing of the Red Sea and the future covenant restoration. Okay, it's combining all these imageries into one, the idea of overcoming the chaos in the beginning in the waters. When the boundaries fail, when the temple was destroyed, the creation loses its constraint on the chaos. When the avodah collapses, something comes in to fill its space. So why Daniel 7? Okay, chaos, empire, and the restoration of the human role. Daniel 7 is about humanity stepping back into its role as the image of God, while being opposed by rival powers who use the avodah zarah to destabilize. I do want an honest answer so I can know how in depth to go with the chapter. How many of you are completely new to Daniel 7? Okay, and then how many of you are very familiar with it? Just answer yes for familiar and no for not familiar. I don't want to belabor any pieces here that don't need to be belabored. As you're answering, I want to focus on the greater than on the bottom. In our address today, we're going to be focusing more on the covenantal diagnosis than the future prediction. I do hold this passage as predictive. That's the traditional Jewish view. I hold it as predictive. Many of you will be very familiar with the assignments of as far as what kingdoms, what empires are assigned here in the passage. We're focusing today not so much on the prediction, although it's there. We're focusing on the covenantal diagnosis. I'm checking the chats. Okay. We are going to take the conservative route and include the verses. Okay. So Genesis 1, we see ordered creation, the overlaying of order through avodah. Tevet 10, that was today. With the breach of the wall, that the order begins to unravel. Daniel 7 fills the void to describe what happens when the avodah collapses. Daniel 7, for those who are not familiar, was written during the Babylonian exile after the temple was destroyed. The Son of Man and the Holy Ones are the restoration of the human vocation. It is rule returned to those who rule rightly. Okay, so let's go right to our passage. Okay. How many of you are aware that Daniel 7 is not written in Hebrew? Feel free to answer if you knew that. It is not written in Hebrew. It is written in Aramaic. One of maybe 6-7 chapters in the entire Hebrew Bible. It's in Aramaic. Yep, it is in Aramaic. So if I sound a little different, that's why. Aramaic is not as familiar for me as Hebrew. I will be doing mostly English on this because I don't want to take as long as it would. Chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7 are Aramaic. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are Hebrew. And chapters 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are Hebrew. So just chapters 4 through 7. And also the book of Ezra has a section that's Aramaic as well, too. I think it's maybe the first few chapters, it's Aramaic. I forget the exact alignment. But yeah, this is it's an Aramaic. And Aramaic is a cognate language to Hebrew. So it's lots of the same words. You read here, B'shna chada leBelteshar melech Babel. In the first year of Belteshazzar, king of Babel, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head as he lay upon his bed. When he wrote the dream, and told us some of the matter. Those that like the King James, I always like how this rhymes. Visions of his head upon his bed. Okay, that's unique to the King James. The Core and Jerusalem Bible follows a similar pattern. Okay. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens stirred up the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second one like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And thus it was said to it, arise, devour much flesh. After this, I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, and had upon the back of it 4 wings of a bird. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And they had great iron teeth, it devoured and broke in pieces and stamped the residue or the remnant with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and they had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up from among them another little horn, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. As I looked, behold, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of whose head was pure like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, its wheels burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. They sat in judgment, and the books were open. I looked then because of the sound of the great words which the horn spoke. And as I looked, the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like a son of man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, tongues should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was grieved in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head have frightened me. I came near to one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the meaning of these things. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, 4 kingdoms, Malchim, who shall arise out of the earth. And the holy ones of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I wished to know the truth of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, the teeth of which were of iron and its nails of brass, which devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns which were in its head, and of the other horn which came up, and before which 3 fell, that horn had eyes and a mouth that spoke very great things, and which appeared greater than its fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the holy ones and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the holy ones of the Most High. And the time came that the holy ones possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be different from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns are 10 kings that shall rise out of the earth, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be different from the former, and shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the holy ones of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand for a season, and seasons and half a season. But they shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed in the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the holy ones of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. Here's the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much affrighted me, and my color changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. Okay. Does everybody follow that? Is that clear? Let's look at this. Maybe you saw this. Maybe you saw this already, okay? Verse 1. Wa'aru arba, this is verse 2. Wa'aru arba ruche shamayim, shamaya mechichin layama rabba. And behold, 4 winds of heaven were surging upon the great sea. This is a very clear delving into the metaphorical world of Genesis 1. The earth was tohu and bohu, and the spirit or the wind of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Let's look at that. Genesis 1:2, we have the waters that tehom, the deep. Okay. Daniel 7:2, we have the Yam Rabbah, that's the Aramaic, the Great Sea. Working within the same ecosystem of meanings. We have the winds, the Ruach Elohim. In contrast, we have the Arba Ruche Shemaya, the 4 winds of heaven. The motion here is hovering. It's a preordering. The motion here is surging. It's like an agitating. It's deordering. The outcome of Genesis 1 is that creation begins by putting boundaries on the chaos. In Genesis 7:2, the beasts of chaos emerge. I want to point out here that in Genesis, we have a single directed ruach, a wind that moves over the waters. The result of this wind is bounded domains, bounding on the light and dark, bounding on the heaven and earth, bounding on the sea and land. In Daniel, we have the four winds that collide. Okay, the arba ruche, they're in collision with each other. And what happens? You have unbounded emergence. Where in Genesis 1, we had creation according to its kind. Here we have instability. Okay, we have terror. The instability is in these hybrid beasts. Okay, they are violating the order of creation. They're coming out of the chaos and they're violating the order of creation. Where Genesis shows containment and preparation, Daniel shows disturbance and release. This is not accidental. This is a reversal of Genesis 1, very deliberately. And in this context, the sea is an anti-creational chaos. The sea is not just neutral nature, it is anti-creational. It is a space of unbounded power, instability, and rival rule, okay, from which the beasts come. I did not draw these, okay, nor did Rina, but so don't judge me too hard for them, okay? The beasts are empires anti-creation, and the text will tell us this, okay? They are rival rule after the collapse of boundaries, okay? So historically, these have been the applications in both traditional Christian and Jewish understanding. Each of these is a kingdom. The text even tells us that. Each of these is a kingdom. It says king in the English. The word is malchin, meaning a kingdom, okay? The first is Babylon, okay? And the second are the Medes and Persians. I'm not going to go into the full historical explanation. If you would like, at some point, we can talk about that, but it's a different discussion. The fourth are the Greeks. The last of the kingdoms is Rome. It is, however, not exhausted by Rome, but it is historically Rome, okay? This last creature is fundamentally anti-order. It crushes, it tramples, it seeks to reorganize all of reality according to its desire and to its power. It's unnameable power. I say unnameable, it's Rome, but it goes bigger than Rome. Like it permeates. It's meant to permeate. And it tells us here that of the 10 horns on its head, that 3 horns get uprooted and 1 horn becomes prominent. It's called the little horn. And it speaks great things against the Most High. It speaks bold things against the Most High. Okay. There are some really strong opinions on what this little horn is. And there are some beautiful thoughts on that. I'm not going to go into that right now. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. Let's look at how we can map this onto Genesis. The court scene of the creation of humanity. When the text says, let us make humanity in our image, according to our likeness, Genesis 1:26 is not really giving creative speech. It is delegating authority. It is a court scene implicit. It may not directly tell us that, but we saw through the mapping on Psalm 8, we saw through the use of the plural languages, that humanity is being appointed as a delegate authority, a deputy, and that there is a court scene behind the scenes there, okay? In Daniel 7, you may have noticed this. Thrones were set in place, the court set in judgment, and the books were opened. This is an explicit court scene. So we have the chaos emerging from the waters, undoing the order of creation, and like in Genesis 1, you have a court scene, and here we have a court scene. Thrones are being set, the Ancient of Days presides, and there's court language, the books are being opened, okay? Why now? Because the delegated authority has been abused. The purpose of Daniel 7 is to judge the rulers of kingdoms, to revoke the misused authority, and to reassign dominion. What's happening in Daniel 7 is a reassignment of the dominion given to the image of God. That's why there's the reference here to the Son of Man. It says here, one like a Son of Man comes with the cloud of heavens. He's approaching the throne with a summons. He's not forcing himself there. He receives an appointment, the dominion, the kingdom, and his authority is public and recognized. This is a renewal of the image of God appointment in Genesis 1:26 and 28. This is a very clear mapping of Genesis 1 onto Daniel 7. We could go in a lot more detail, but for time's sake, I'm going to move a bit quick on these next few points here, okay? 1 second. Thank you, Jen. Okay, the beasts lose their dominion. Okay, so for the rest of the beasts, their dominion is taken away, yet their lives are prolonged for a season at a time. Their dominion is taken away, that their life is still extended. The reappointment of man, the Son of Man. Behold, one like a Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. Notice he's not a beast. The 4 prior characters are beasts. Okay, he's not from the sea. Okay, he's given rule, he doesn't seize it. This is humanity restored. It is the image bearing reinstalled. It is the vocation of humanity returned. Where the 4 beasts were kingdoms, the 5th character, the Son of Man, is also a kingdom. Okay, and bear with me. Genesis 1 is order installed. Daniel 7 is the order contested. That's the court meeting. And Daniel 7 is the order restored. Okay. So who receives the kingdom? Judgment is rendered. The kingdom is given. Who's the kingdom given to? The text answers this question in 2 different ways. First, it says that the Son of Man receives the dominion. This is verse 14. But then 3 times, it says that the holy ones, the Kadeshin of the Most High, receive the kingdom. This phrase, holy ones, I think in the King James and some translations say saints. Kadeshin means holy ones. The holy ones of the Most High receive the kingdom. It says that the Son of Man and the holy ones receive the kingdom. Are these 2 recipients, or are they one reality expressed in 2 different ways? So I wanted to explore this here momentarily. When Daniel structures this chapter, he gives his vision, he gives his interpretation. The interpretation does not replace the vision, it decodes it, okay? There's one figure in many people. The Son of Man appears as a single human figure. When the vision is interpreted, this is verses 18, 22, and 27. I'm going to pull up those verses right now. 18, 22, and 27. It says, but the holy ones of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever, even forever and ever. In verse 22, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given for the holy ones of the Most High, and the time came that the holy ones possess the kingdom. Okay, so it's been given to the Son of Man and to the holy ones. Now, the Son of Man is a contrary character to the little horn, where the 4th beast is not just an empire as a system. The little horn emerges from this beast. Okay, I'm actually going to pull this verse up so we can kind of show where that's at. 1 second. Talks about the 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. This is verse 7. The horns, 3 of which were plucked up. And it says that his horn, this little horn, had eyes like a man and a mouth speaking great things. Okay, this individual also emerges from the beast. The Son of Man represents the holy ones. The little horn represents this system, this empire. Okay, we're getting to the final delivery here, and I appreciate your patience here. Okay, the 4th beast is the kingdom of chaos. It's represented by the individual little horn. It works through violence and coercion. It is self-exalting, and it does avodah zarah. We're going to look at that in a second, what that means here. The kingdom of the Most High is represented by the Son of Man, okay, who is the holy ones. It has shared authority. It receives dominion, and it practices the avodah Hashem. Okay. When the text speaks of the little horn, it speaks of him speaking arrogantly. It speaks of him waging war on the holy ones. It speaks about him trying to redefine reality. I'm not sure if you saw the verse, and some of you are very familiar with this, but it says that he seeks to change the times and the laws. Just a moment here. Here we go. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the holy ones of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand for a season, and seasons and half a season. Okay. His conquest of chaos is aimed specifically at the Torah of God. Okay. And this is one of the big takeaways. His conquest of chaos is aimed specifically at the Torah of God. By attacking the Torah, he is destabilizing the world. Okay? This is not just a persecution, it is an actual rebellion against the avodah Hashem, the service of God. It's a liturgical rebellion. Okay? This reference to the times is reference to sacred order, to calendar. This word law is the word dat, it's covenantal boundaries, it's the authorized worship of Hashem. Together, these define how the world's held together. And so for the little horn to change them, to seek to come against them, is to undo the ordering of creation. It's in this context that one of the most basic definitions of avodah zarah can be arrived at. Avodah zarah can be defined as any institution that seeks to supplant or to replace the Torah of God, that seeks to institute something in the place of the Torah of God, be it an institution, be it a system, be it, I guess you could even put belief in there. I'm less likely to put belief in there because you can't measure it behaviorally. But whatever is in place to destabilize the avodah Hashem, the service of God within the world. Okay. So now let's look at this. Is the big takeaway. I mentioned that I was going to talk about Yeshua here at the end. So we saw how the little horn represents the chaos system of the fourth beast with Rome, okay, which is more expansive than Rome, but historically is located as Rome. The Son of Man represents, and I've not defined what this is yet, but the people of the Holy One, the Holy Ones of the Most High. It's describing Israel. It's describing Israel. Where the four beasts are those four nations, the Son of Man represents Israel. Okay? Within Daniel 7, the Son of Man is not a rival to the Holy Ones. He's also not a replacement for Israel. He is the representative image bearer through whom the kingdom is granted. Okay? I'm not defining who the Son of Man is. I'm defining him in solidarity with Israel. Read this way, Son of Man stands with the holy ones, not against them. His authority is representative, not extractive. He does not cancel the Torah, and he validates the faithful and vindicates the faithful amidst the beastly rule. His reign does not suspend the Torah, does not reassign authority. So now here's the challenge. Okay, in the Christian tradition, there's been a very historical, going back to the New Testament, assignment of the idea of the Son of Man to Yeshua. That was a very common messianic appellate term. So here's the challenge, okay? If a person holds that this is Yeshua, then to follow him is not to bypass or exit Torah. Let me restate that. To follow him in this context is not to exit Torah or to bypass Israel's vocation, but to share in the calling of the Son of Man. Okay, that's really important. If you hold that the Son of Man is Yeshua, okay, to follow him is not to exit Torah or to bypass Israel's vocation, the Jewish vocation, but rather it's to share in this calling, to bear the image faithfully, to resist the chaotic powers, and to be stewards of time, law, and allegiance under the Most High. Okay, this is a challenge. This should challenge everyone that holds that Yeshua is the Son of Man. Okay, and I'm not giving my opinion on the Son of Man. This is not what I'm saying I hold. But what I'm saying is that this should be a call to awareness and to action to anyone that wants to be historically faithful to this kingdom vision of who the Son of Man is, in contrast to the little horn and to the system of empire that seeks to undo and to destabilize the order in creation. An action which the text tells us is focused on the persecution of Israel, on the saints of the Most High, and on stopping the observance of the Torah. Okay, really important. I see a few comments. Give me a second. Okay, I've got some housekeeping. I've got some housekeeping to do before I go to the housekeeping. Before I shut down the recording. This was about 60 minutes longer than I planned to do. Usually I'm really good with my time. I got too excited about this topic and I probably packed too much into one session. I promise you my goal is to be 45 to 60 minutes, okay? If anybody has any questions here right now, before I turn the recording off, go ahead and raise your hand and we can address a few of those right now. Okay, I'm gonna do this on the okay. Laura Lee, go ahead. You are still being recorded. Go ahead, Laura Lee.
I saw Rahab.
Excellent,
Any
yes.
connection between that Rahab and the Rahab in Joshua?
Very likely that it's the same name in Hebrew, and it might be that she's actually named after the same idea. I mean, it was a mythological creature, like a dragon. Maybe it was literal. I don't know. Maybe it was literal. And it could be that she was named after that. Come to think of it, I think I've actually read something that said that it was deliberately themed off of the Rahab of the dragon. Are you aware of anything?
No, I'm not. It's just when I see similarities or pronunciations that are identical, I'm always trying to look for a connection, if there is one.
There probably is. I seem to recall one, and it's not immediately accessible, but I seem to recall there being a connection with that.
Can you go back to the screen that you last had? I wanted you to clarify the one phrase, faithful amid. He vindicates the faithful amid beastly rule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you clarify what you mean by that?
So the function of the Son of Man here, if he is taken as being a literal figure, okay, if he's understood as a literal figure in the way that the little horn is taken as a literal figure, okay, I mean, in the apocalyptic literature, it's hard to know what is actually meant to be literal, what's meant to be figurative. If he's taken as a literal figure, he seems to be. It seems to be that he is consistent with the holy ones. Like he's working along with them, so to speak. Like he's not bypassing them, right? His existence somehow is a representative. Okay. And
okay. I think I'm seeing now. I think I misread it.
Okay.
It vindicates the faithful. I was thinking the word faithfulness as far as loyalty. You're referring to the faithful as being a synonym to the holy ones?
Correct.
Oh, gotcha. Yep. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it out. Thank you.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you for asking. Anybody else on the recorded section before I go off recording here? Go ahead and raise your hand. I do want to mention here that this class will always remain free on Tuesdays. We are really trying to get more people to come and to benefit from this. It will not always be this long. I apologize it was so long this time. The archive for this class, for a few days, it will be available for watching at no cost. It is going to be put behind a paywall, okay? And that's going to help to allow us to continue developing material, to continue to teach and do what we're doing. I mentioned already Rina's Hebrew class is coming up. That's also 18 hours a month, okay? And everybody already has access to the what's it called? To the chat forum.
I didn't set that up yet.
Okay, it'll be set up here soon, and it's like a safe place to chat. Any questions, things that we can't always talk about on Facebook. It's getting dangerous out there. It's getting dangerous out there to talk about some of the things we're talking about. Okay. And the online forum will be private, and it'll be a safe place to talk about things that are maybe even uncomfortable to talk about, even face to face. So I saw a chat come through. Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording, but I'm going to stay on, and you're welcome to chat with me. Recording is going off. This will be posted later on today, tomorrow.